All right, so this is gonna be episode 4 of deck profiles for Scarlet and Violet to join together as part of the Exposé series. This episode is gonna be about Terapagos. All right, so last episode covered Eternatus and explained how Eternatus is a combo deck, which is a type of control deck that is more rewarding to more head forward plays, right? Um, and so also kind of recapped on Charizard and Future and how Charizard is a also a control deck, but it's part of the category of what would be called best decks in English uh trading card games, right? And so whereas Future would be more of like a combo deck, right, in terms of uh English trading card games, right? So Eternatus we covered, right? Combo deck. Future we covered combo deck. Charizard is a more of a best deck. So fourth episode we're gonna cover another best deck, which is Terapagos, right? So we have two more episodes after this. Then just gonna make a quick announcement. Then after those two episodes, we're gonna do set I for VGC, right? So yeah, gonna do a series for set I, and then um, probably by then uh, the next set for Pokemon Trading Card game will come out. That's in Rivals, and can do some deck profiles for I haven't really um finalized as to how I'm gonna do deck profiles for that format, but this series that we're doing for this format is more to catch up on kind of how Scarlet and Violet has unfolded, rather than trying to give um, a an analysis of the format. And so this is definitely more. This is definitely less. Um, less of if you want to call it regular scheduled programming than it would have been for normal sets. And so yeah, just to kind of clear up any confusion that um yeah, the expose is something I'm going to be doing probably for you know kind of more um structured formats, that are not as long and overlapping into different generations and stuff like that, just so I can you know kind of uh give a give a report, if you want to call it that, on those formats, right? So they can be better understood, right? So that's something I'm going to be doing um as a series for formats, right? Not necessarily going to be, you know, the content or the production that's going to be for that format, right? So yeah, I was doing deck profiles for this format, and I did, Volcania Magmortar, which I want to do again for sure, and I want to do Dusknoir Luxray probably a little bit more as well. And I in between, making those videos, sort of, also was obviously playing, locals as well, and so um when I, finalized the Charizard list, I wanted to do a deck profile for Charizard, um, since I had done pretty well with it, right? And so that's kind of what sparked um the expose series in general, was so that I could just make a Charizard video, and then I could also explain that of course Charizard is the best deck in format, but you know there are other decks that um can not necessarily, obviously Charizard is going to be like the deck that carries you, if you're good at the game, right? And Charizard would just do the rest. But of course, if every single player was playing Charizard at an event, right, then it would look pretty bad, for Pokemon. So obviously there's decks that can go toe to toe with Charizard, if you're skilled enough, right? And so that's kind of what the Expose series is about, right? It's about covering, the best deck in format, and then covering the 5 decks that you'd want to play, you know, or you want to learn rather for the format, right? So that you're not just, playing the best deck at every single event, right? So it's very important to understand, you know, kind of what the best decks were for formats. So that's what I'm gonna be doing in the future. So I'm going to be, studying formats. I have a lot of the cards for most formats. I'm gonna do up to X and Y, right? Um, that's the plan at least right now. So I'm gonna do X and Y to Scarlet and Violet, right? And so that's what I'm gonna do, right? I already have most of the decks. Just a few archetypes I have to buy, and going to yeah, do an expose on those formats, right? And then yeah, so that's basically what the expose is about, right? If I wanted to give a brief summary about it, so yeah, so just to kind of recap what I kind of went over in the alternatives video, there are 3 meta combo decks, right, in a format, and then there's 3 like meta best decks, right? And so um this is going to be about the this would be what would be classified as like your budget deck, or your beginner deck, right? Um, so yeah, this is we that that's this deck trackables would fall under that category, right? It's your deck that very hard to stray away from its general core, and yeah, it's more of those decks, that you would play, that almost feel like noob killers when you start playing them. For example, like if you're just playing with your friends, right? You just got into the Pokemon trading card game, and you know you bought like the decks I'm gonna cover, right? Let's say I've already covered Terapagos, Eternatus, Future Charizard, right? Let's say you had those 4 decks, right? And you were playing with your friends. Terapagos would feel like a deck when you start off that just feels extremely overpowered, right? And it's like the meme generally that goes along with those type of archetypes is like noob killer, right? And if you don't really know what you're doing, then you're just gonna lose, and you're not gonna really understand what happened, right? So that's what Terapagos falls under. It's one of those decks, right? And so I feel like it's gonna be good to cover. Since we've covered 3 pretty difficult decks that I would highly recommend you not start with playing. You definitely want to try starting with something like Terapagos. So yeah, it's gonna help kind of explain how Terapagos works. All right. All right. So Terapagos, right? Give some lore. Terapagos is the mythical Pokemon that came out in not mythical, rather legendary Pokemon that came out in um Scarlet and Violet, the Indigo Disc DLC, and if you've played core games, Scarlet and Violet, you're familiar with kind of Terapagos, right? It's a normal type Pokemon, and it is like the carries actually a very similar reputation in the game than it would in the card game, right? Where it's like your for default for the competitive scene, right? It's very ironic that Terapagos is also the default meta deck that you'd play for the trading card game, right? So yeah, and Terapagos obviously in the Scarlet and Violet games, um, you know, Pokemon can terrestrialize, meaning they can uh activate um the Terror Orb item and change their type into a single type. And Terapagos's type that it can transform into is the Stellar type, right? Which doesn't change the Pokemon's type, but it gives them the Stellar effect, which, if I'm not mistaken, um, increases the power of. It's a very complicated mechanic, but all you need to understand is that there's also an attack, um, Terra Blast, in the core games, and when you terrestrialize into Stellar type, um, you your Terra Blast turns into the Stellar type, which means it can hit all the Pokemon effectively, and then it hits all terrestrialized Pokemon super effectively. And then Terra Blast has 80 base power, and when you it's Stellar Terra Blast 100 base power, and when you use Stellar Terra Blast, your attack and special attack are reduced by one stage. Right. So that's kind of the most important thing to understand with Stellar type. Besides that, it's a pretty complicated mechanic. Um, so yeah, that's Terapagos, right? And so with Terapagos being a pretty kind of vanilla Pokemon in the core games, they definitely kept that theme with the trading card game. All right, so this deck just going to be attacking with Terapagos, right? So Terapagos EX, right? Put up here too, right? It has the search attack, Unified Beatdown, right? 30x for 2 colorless energy. You go second, can't use this attack during your first turn. This attack does 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon, right? So in the Pokemon Trading Card game, you can have a maximum of 5 bench Pokemon on your bench. So with 5 bench Pokemon on your bench, this attack is going to do 150 damage, right? Um, so 150 damage, no drawbacks. It's actually not bad, right? For 2 colorless energies. Um, so yeah, just on paper, this attack's already good, right? Second attack, Crown Opal. During your opponent's next turn, it's for grass, water, and lightning energy. Does 180 damage. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacking your opponents from basic non-colorless Pokemon. Right? So it's kind of a wordy effect, but basically what it says is if you are a basic Pokemon and you are not colorless, then if I use Crown Opal, then you cannot inflict damage onto Terapagos, right? So it's still, even with an explanation, it's still pretty complicated because there's like multiple types of damage, right? So you have your damage, which is just your general attacks, right? And then you have like effects, right? So effects that can place damage can still place damage on Terapagos, but general attacks that just do damage can't do it for basic non-colorless Pokemon, right? Pretty complicated attack, but it's it, it's not something you should worry about because it's not an attack you're going to be using too often. So don't worry too much about it. Um, but it is a pretty good attack in that with 5 bench Pokemon on your bench, you're only going to do 150. But if you attach water, grass, and a lightning, you can do 180, right? So it was a pretty good attack, right? Either way, whether or not you understand its effect or not, right? So you're gonna be attacking with this card, right? So this is your main attacker, right? And it's basically just gonna enable your whole game, your whole deck, right? So next opener that's pretty important in this deck is Hoo Hoots, right? So there's a lot of Hoo Hoots in this format. There's Hoo Hoo from Prismatic Evolutions, or Temple of Forces rather, and there's a Hoo Hoot from well, this one's from Temple of Forces rather. I think the other one's from Prismatic Evolutions, and so um it's pretty arbitrary honestly which ones you play, but these are going to be the openers that are going to get you into your main extenders for the deck. All right, so how you're going to get to the Hoo Hoots with this card, Fan Rotom, right? So Fan Rotom, 70 HP, colorless Pokemon, basic colorless Pokemon, has the ability Fan Call. Once during your first turn, may search your deck for up to 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less, reveal them and put into your hand, and shuffle your deck. You can't use more than one Fan Call ability during your turn. Right? So as the attack, it's Salt Lightning for 70 damage for a colorless energy. If there's no stadium in play, this attack does nothing. Right? So this is how you're going to be getting into your Hoo Hoots mainly, right? And then last opener for the deck is well, there's actually 2 more openers. Buffalint, right? 100 HP colors basic Pokemon, has the ability Curly Wall. If you have at least one other Buffalint in play, all of your basic colors Pokemon take 60 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. Right? The effect of Curly Wall does not stack. And then its attack, Boundless Power for 3 colors energy, does 130 damage. Um, During your next turn, this Pokemon can attack. Right? And you have Ranguru. Right? So Ranguru, basic 120 HP colors Pokemon. First attack, now you're my power. So at the end of your next turn, the defending Pokemon's weakness is now colorless. Right? Then its second attack, Smack for 3 colorless energy, does 80 damage. Right? So your main attackers for the deck are going to be Oranguru, Terapagos, right? So you're going to want both of them. So you're going to want a pretty even split between them. So you're going to want to play at least 3 Terapagos, right? And at least 2 Oranguru, right? So that gives you effectively 5 attackers in your deck, right? So also play uh Mew EX, right? Read this card too. Mew EX from 151, 180 HP Psychic Pokemon, has the ability Restart. Once you're in your turn, you draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. Then it has the attack Genome Hacking for 3 colorless energy. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Very important card in this deck. Printed way before the set that Terapagos came out was Cell Crown, and it's been a very key part of the format since, right? So those are openers, right? Then you're going to get into them, right? You're gonna play 4 copies of Professor's Research, right? Gonna play 4 copies of Drayden. You're gonna play 4 copies of Nest Ball. Well, it's 3 there. Right? 4 copies of Nest Ball. All right. These cards are gonna help you. So Nest Ball and Drayden are gonna directly target your openers, and then if you don't have Nest Ball or Drayden, just gonna say goodbye to your hand, and you're gonna draw 7 cards. All right. So yeah, those are your openers. Those are your attackers, and you're gonna play 2 Buffalins, and then you're gonna play 4 Noctowl, 4 Hootloots, 4 Hootloots, and then you're gonna play 2 Fan Rotoms. All right. So again, Hootloots are pretty arbitrary. You have Prismatic Evolution Hootloots, right? That's fine. If you have Transmore Forces Hootloots, it's fine, right? So those are your openers. So your extenders to keep it on the Pokemon here. Main extenders that you're gonna try to get into are I don't know why there's only 3 in here. Strange. Oh, there it is. All right. So the main extenders that you want to get into are this guy, Noctowl, right? So Noctowl, 100 HP, colorless stage 1 Pokemon, has the ability to Dual Seeker. Once during your turn, you may, when you play this card, Pokemon from your hand, to evolve one of your Pokemon. If you have any Terra Pokemon in play, you may search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck, right? It has the attack Speed Wing for 2. Color Synergy does 60 damage, right? So these are the main extenders that you want to get into, right? And you have Drayden's, 4 copies of Drayden, 4 copies of Research, and you have 2 Fan Rotoms, right? You also have the 4 Noctowls, right? So very beginner friendly deck, right? The card that is mainly going to be used to extend your board state is you have 4 plus 10, 14 outs, right? That are, reasonable outs to getting into your extenders, right? So very beginner friendly deck, right? So Noctowl is gonna give you access to your whole deck, right? Um, Noctowl is gonna give you access to the secondary spender for this deck, which is Area Zero Underdepths, right? So um, Area Zero Underdepths is a stadium card, right? And it's kind of a wordy stadium card. Reads each player who has any Terra Pokemon in play can have up to 8 Pokemon on their bench, right? Then it has some errata. Also, that basically says if you have no Terra Pokemon in play and you have more than 5 Pokemon in play, then you have to discard until you have 5. Right? That's basically all it says. Right? And so this is your main extender, right? So Noctel is going to get you into its mainly. Basically, it gives you, access to 3 more bench slots, right? And so the idea is that Terapagos' attack does a maximum of 150 damage, right? But then with Area Zero in play, you can bench 3 more Pokemon, and this card's attack can go up to 240, right? So that's kind of the idea. That's kind of what you're trying to do with this deck. That's literally it. There's nothing more else to look into. That's literally what you're trying to do with this deck. So that's what makes it so beginner friendly, right? You're just trying to get this Terapagos into active. You're gonna get this into play, Area Zero under depths, and you're gonna put down 8 bench Pokemon, and you're gonna attack with Unified Beatdown. That's it. Then you're gonna try to sequence a victory. So the Pokemon Trading game definitely extremely hard. Um, people can play it for decades and never really um capture, what um the Pokemon company is trying to do with this game, right? And this is what these decks are for, right? So that no matter how long, you know, you try and you're just like, man, I cannot figure out, I can't figure out how to sequence a win with Eternatus, right? You can just be like, I still want to play Pokemon, I may not be able to play Eternatus like my friend, right? But I still want to play Pokemon. And that's what these decks are for, right? So don't look too much into Terapagos. You want to keep it as vanilla as possible. That is how you're going to get the most learning from playing this deck. Because the goal is not to be stuck playing this deck for a whole format. The goal is to play this deck, you know, grasp it, and then get all the frustration, all the ego, you know, all the stupidity out of the way, and then move on to better decks, that have way better win conditions, right? This is just a deck to basically keep people playing the game, and not get frustrated from, having to learn a Eternatus sequence, right? So again, get Terapagos into active, get Area Zero into play, and then bench 8 Pokemon and attack a Unified Beatdown. That's it, right? So you're not going to be hitting 240 unless you have Area Zero in play. So play 4 copies, all right? These are your secondary extenders, all right? Now, once you've gotten, your Area Zero, you're going to need some other cards to extend, your options, right? So generally, the other card that you want to get with Noctowl is this card right here, Crispin. So Crispin's supporter card, which reads: search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards of different types. Reveal them. Put one of them into your hand. Attach the other one to one of your Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. Right. So kind of a wordy ability. It definitely caught me off guard when I first read it. But basically, what it says is that you can search your deck for 2 energies of different types, and then take them out of your deck. Right. Then attach one and put one in your hand. So you can target up to 2 energies with this card, right? But they have to be different types. So, for example, if the only energies in my deck are 2 water energies, I can only target one of them, right? I cannot target both water energies. if the only water energies in my deck are water energies. All right. So that's kind of how you have to understand this card. If I had a water energy in my deck and I had a lightning energy in my deck, then I'd be able to target both the water and the lightning energy and take them out of my deck. All right. So the other thing to understand is that again, if I only have two water energies in my deck, then I cannot just target one energy and attach it. I have to have two different energies to attach. Otherwise, yeah, I can target, the single water energy, but it's just going to go into my hand. All right. So what Crispin does basically is you can target, for example, a water and a lightning energy, right? You can attach, right? For example, the water energy using Crispin, right? The Crispin got you a lightning energy in your hand. Then you can attach it, and then you can use Unified Beatdown. That's basically what you're trying to do with the Crispin, right? You get the Terapagos active, play Crispin, you can attack, right? So that's your tertiary extender, right? Then this is how you play Pokemon, basically, right? Play this card, Judge, right? So we've covered all the Pokemon. On to the trainers, right? So Judge, so each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws four cards, right? So this is how you know you judge, pun intended, who the better player is, right? So Judge, very well designed card. You have to shuffle your whole hand into your deck. Doesn't matter how many cards are in your hand. Zero, one, doesn't matter. Shuffle it all into your deck. Then you draw four cards, right? So Judge is a card where you can learn the rules of Pokemon, right? You can buy the best deck, but if you get judged and you can't shuffle your deck, your opponent's not gonna shuffle for you, your friend's not gonna shuffle for you. You're gonna have to shuffle your deck, and if you don't shuffle your deck well, you're gonna draw bad. So that's kind of what Judge is designed to do, basically, right? So you play three copies, right? It's gonna be a pretty long game, right? Playing Terapagos and playing Pokemon in general. So you want a lot of copies, but not too many copies. So that's about three, right? Then you're already set up, right? And your opponent keeps discarding your area zeros. You have this card called Tenacity. Search your deck for a stadium card and an energy card. Reveal them, put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. Say a support card, right? So this card can get you, any energy card, right? Because it doesn't say what type of energy, it just says an energy card. So foreshadowing a little bit, there are different energies in this deck than just water energies, light energies, and grass energies, right? And then it gets you the stadium for your deck, which is area zero, right? So yeah, so this card basically lets you preemptively search it. For example, if you know your opponent has a lot of cards, a lot of stadiums in their hand, right? You can this deck, for example, my deck, Terapagos deck plays the Temporal Forces Hoot, which lets you see your opponent's hand. So if somehow you charge it up, Silent Wing, and you're attacking, you can gain knowledge on your opponent's hand, right? So you will know, right? Obviously, I'm joking, right? But this card basically lets you, get cards that are very difficult to get from your deck into your hand, right? So stadiums and special energies, right? So you play one copy, then you play one copy of this Miriam, right? Shuffle your up to 5 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck. Shuffle any cards into your deck this way. Draw 3 cards, right? So again, if your opponent's discarding your air zeros, right, you don't want to have to use something like Super Rod to get them back. So Miriam, very powerful supporter, can get 5 Pokemon from your discard pile and put them back in your deck, right? So you can get like 2 Buffalins, 2 Hoots, and a Noctowl, whatever. 2 Hoots, 2 Noctowls, and a Buffalin. 2 Hoots, 2 Noctowls, Terapagos, right? And your opponent can't control how much damage you can do, right? Then you play, of course, one Power Pad, one Super Rod, and then another card that they printed for Terapagos, Last Trumpet, right? You can use this card only if you have Terra Pokemon in play. Choose up to 2 of your bench colors Pokemon and attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to each of them, right? Let you, you know, target energies in your discard pile and attach them, right? Really set up a good board state for you, right? So this is a card. This card, if you play a lot of Terapagos, like with your friends or at a locals or something like that, this card will start to make the deck feel like a new killer deck because you can get really good lines where you're discarding energies with like Professor's Research and like you're setting up like 4 energies on one turn, right? With like a Crispin and then like a Glass Trumpet, right? Your opponent can get very flustered, you playing like a Crispin Glass Trumpet line. Um, and then, it's very hard to break your board, right? So you don't want to be pitching them with, Professor Research, so play 2 copies, right? And your A spec, Scoop Cyclone, right? Reads put one of your Pokemon and all attached cards into your hand. Right. So Terapagos is a very low maintenance deck. Right. So having a card like Super School of Cyclone is very powerful in that your opponent will be trying to set up, win conditions for themselves. And School of Cyclone can really give you very low maintenance lines that are very powerful. Right. So this card is very low risk, very high reward in this deck, right? And it may seem like it's very overpowered, but again, right? Terapagos isn't a like uber powerful deck, right? And that it's just gonna run over a tournament, right? So this card, although it's very powerful, right? It's in a deck that isn't that powerful, right? So that's how it balances up, right? So you're generally gonna want to target this card, use this card to target Noctowls, right? And cover to target like damaged Terapagos, right? That's generally what you're going to use to target this card. And also, you can use this card in rare circumstances. If your opponent is trying to stall by bringing up a Pokemon, you can use it to bring the Pokemon out of the active, right? But once we look through the rest of this deck, you're going to know that you're barely going to need to do that, right? Then, the last trainer card, last extended replay is this card, Gravity Gemstone, which is also printed in Stellar Crown, right? It's a tool card. It reads as long as the longer the Pokemon this card is attached to is an active spot, their tree cost of both active Pokemon is colorless more. Right? So on paper this card doesn't really seem that powerful. Um but I'll explain kind of how this card works in this deck after I cover the energies. Right? So energies in play for this deck. Over the energies is play two basic waters, play two basic lightning, play two basic grass. Right. This just gives you six options to target for Crispin, so you're not going to get into situations where you play Crispin and you can't use it to attach. All right. And you're only going to really want to charge up two Terapagos at a time. So you're not going to need like a lot of copies of these, right? So you play two of each, right? And then you play four Jet Energies, right? So Jet Energy is a special energy card that's printed in Paldea Evolved. It reads, as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides colorless energy. When you attach this card from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, switch that Pokemon with your active Pokemon. Very cool card in this deck, right? Allows you to attach like a Grass Energy, for example, with Crispin. And if you have Jet Energy in your hand and your Terapagos is not active, you know, right? You can attach it with Crispin, and you can attach the Jet Energy, and it gets your Terapagos into active, right? Pretty simple. That's basically how you're going to want to use this card. And also, you're going to use it again if your opponent tries to stall. You can use it to get your Terapagos back into active. You can also use it, if you're pretty cheeky, to attach something like a Mew EX, right? So, for example, if you have already a charged up Terapagos, right, then right, and they bench, let's say they have like they put up a Hoo, for example, or even worse, a you know a Buffalint, right, and you have your charged up Terapagos on the bench. Buffalint has two retreat costs, so you're not going to be able to get it out with this an attachment, right? So you bench Mew, has Gen Energy, goes to the active. Mew has a free retreat, right? So its retreat cost is zero, right? And then you can use it to retreat into your Terapagos, right? So if you know the rules of Pokemon, you know that you only get one retreat per turn, right? But if there's effects that let you promote a Pokemon, you can use those effects to promote Pokemon as much as you want, right? There's no limit. So you can, again, use Gen Energy, bring up Mew, and then you can retreat for turn, bring back up your Terapagos, right? And it creates a very good board state because now Mew has one energy on it, so you can use Crispin to attach two energies onto your Mew, and then you can use Genome Hacking, right? So Mew, very powerful card in this deck, invaluable in this deck. Want to be playing in this deck, all right? So that's the energies, and so yeah, you're not gonna be wanting to use. You're not gonna be wanting to use Scoop Cyclone too liberally, right? You want to use it to basically secure good board states for yourself. All right. So the win condition for this deck, and I think I miscounted somewhere. I don't know how there's 60 cards. Well, either way, there's only one winning card. Oh, I don't know. I have two Briar here, and I only have one here. I don't know which card is extra. Oh, it's Gravity Gemstone. It's Gravity Gemstone. So you play one Briar. Sorry, put two Briars here. There's not two Briars. There is one Briar. And it's supposed to be Gravity Gemstone. Right. So yeah. Nope, nope. Gravity Gemstone's there. No. Oh, there are 59 cards here. And it's supposed to be 60. I don't know what it is. Not important though. I think it's Miriam actually. Yeah, it is Miriam. So yeah, it's Miriam Breyer. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, so win conditions, right? For this deck are going to be, you know, keeping track of, right? Our boss orders, Briar, and counter catcher, right? So Briar counter catcher is probably the two important ones that you're going to be want to focus on. So Briar is support card, reads you can use this card only if your opponent has exactly two prize cards remaining. Once during this turn, your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from the attack used by your Terra Pokemon. Take one more prize card. Right? So this is basically like this is the skill expression part of the deck, right? Where, um you would basically this is the card that you'd be using to basically prepare yourself for more difficult combos that you can do, right, in the format, right? So this is just to keep the deck interesting. Well, it's not necessarily to keep the deck interesting, but it's to keep the deck skillful, right? So that's basically how you're trying to. That's basically how you should understand this card. This is not just a card you throw in the deck and then oh my god I'm gonna win without Briar. You're stupid if you're thinking like that. Card's part of the deck and you should be using it to win. Right? So obviously, when you play Briar, you can't play any other supporter for turn. Right? So that's why you play Countercatcher. Right? So Countercatcher reads, you can use this card only if you have more prize cards than your opponent. Switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. All right. So Countercatcher basically lets you bring up a Pokemon that you want to attack without using a supporter card, so that you can go Briar, right? And if you can't KO the active, use Counter Catcher, and then you can KO the active, right? So that's like the combo that you're trying to master with this deck, Briar Counter Catcher. So yeah, nothing really more deep than that for this deck, right? So to kind of go over a typical game, right? You're gonna probably open something like Hoo, right? Then gonna use um either Drayden or Nest Ball, right? To get you. Well, Drayden will get you can get you a Nest Ball, and Drayden can also get you a Fan Rotom, right? And then Nest Ball can just directly get you a Fan Rotom, right? So ideally, you'd want a Nest Ball first, but you might have to play Drayden instead, right? So you get the Fan Rotom for the Nest Ball or the Drayden. You're gonna use Fan Call, right? Then you're gonna Fan Call. Let's say if you open the Hoots, you're gonna Fan Call for two buffalins, right? And it's a fan call for two buffalins, and then a fan call for a Noctowl, right? Generally, how you're going to open, right? You Noctowl goes to hand, bench the two buffalins, who has 130 HP effectively. Rotom has 130 HP effectively. The buffalins have 160 HP effectively. So, very fat chance that your opponent's going to be able to knock you out. So, your board's set up, right? Then, next, you're going to try to get into the Terapagos, right? That is your next objective, right? So that you can use Air Zero. You can use Air Zero. You can use Noctowl. And then you can play Crispin and attach to Terapagos, right? Then your Noctowl is probably still going to be active. So your next objective is get the Noctowl out of active. So you have Scoop Cyclone, you have Jet Energy, you just have plain old attachments, right? Since this thing has one retreat, right? Once the Terapagos is active, that is like your mid game, right? If you want to call it that, right? It's your exchange sequence, right? So you're going to be, taking prizes, right? Whittling down your opponent's board, trying to get a good grasp on the resources that they have available and their, road to victory, right? So that you can, you know, take your road to victory and their road to victory doesn't impede your road to victory, right? So obviously, you're not going to win off one Terapagos, fat chance. So, you know, once you got a good grasp of how to get to your road to victory, right, then you can plan out your next attacker. Just 9 times out of 10, going to be Terapagos EX, right? Then your next objective, of course, is to get the next sequence to attack with it. So, Last Trumpet, right? The second Crispin, right? Etc. Right? Then you got your second attacker set up, and you gauge the board state, figure out where your road to victory is, and you take that road, right? So, detour, if you want to call it that you can take in this deck is with a Ranger. So, just to close this video, I'm going to explain how to sequence a victory with Ranger. All right. So, Ranger, right? You bench it. The Buffalo to play has 180 HP, right? So, this thing's going to be big, right? And so, obviously, you know, a lot of big Pokemon in the format don't have, less than 240 HP. So Terapagos is not going to be able to knock them out in one hit. So that's when Oranguru comes into play. All right. So Oranguru can be promoted using Jet Energy, right? Then you have access to attack. Now you're my power, right? So if you understand the rules of Pokemon, you understand that once an effect is put on a Pokemon, if it goes to the bench, the effect goes away, right? So you can use the attack. Now you're my power, right? And the Pokemon's weakness is colorless, but if they retreat, the effect goes away, right? So what you're gonna do to try to make it harder for your opponent to do that is you're gonna attach your energy, and you're gonna attach Gravity Gemstone. Then you're gonna use Now You're My Power. What it does is it increases your opponent's active retreat cost by one, so that no matter unless a Pokemon has free retreat, they cannot just attach and retreat, right? So that's basically the detour you can take, right? That can provide you with the resources you need to reach your road to victory, right? Besides that, there's really no other depth to this deck. You just want to charge up at least two Terapagoses and then try to reach your destination, right? So that's basically Terapagos, right? Um, so just flash the list here. You can get a good look at the counts, right? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.